All right, I am so excited for our guest for the Forget Perfect Leadership news series. And I'm excited to welcome Pamela Penn. She is a senior director of new product development for Milo's Tea Company, which is based in Birmingham, Alabama. Pamela, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I love that you are in innovation and new product development. So tell us a little bit about your career journey.
My career journey, I've been in innovation for almost my entire career, which now spans over 20 years, which is wild to say. I don't feel that old, but time goes quickly. And I've always really had a passion for consumers. I started my career at Procter& and Gamble right out of college. And what I really learned there was the importance of the consumer and keeping them at the heart of all of our decision making. And I really carried that through with me throughout my career journey, always focusing on consumer product development, research and development, innovation. And that's what gives me a lot of passion. That's what gets me out of bed every day. And so I love building the innovation team at Milo's.
So what made you get interested in innovation? Because I feel like it's this really I think it's just a really fun niche.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a little nebulous. It's a little vague when you
Yep.
say you do innovation. People are like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Particularly in the food and beverage space. I didn't know that existed when I was in undergrad. I kind of fell into it on accident and then I loved it. And it's really thinking about what's a consumer need, what's a consumer gap, and how can we fill that or solve a problem, make a consumer's life easier in a unique and interesting way that provides value to the consumer at a price point that they're willing to pay, given who your target is.
Yeah. And I think like regardless of if you're in food and beverage, regardless of what industry you're in, like innovation is a buzzword. Like we need to be more innovative and we need to innovate so that we can be, more competitive. What do you think, like what leadership traits are really important for someone that's wanting to be more innovative?
Yes, and I think what's interesting about innovative, it is a little bit of a buzzword. It's like the AI of
Yeah.
things, right? Like everyone's like, we need AI, we need to be innovative. And it's like, what does that really mean? And I like to think about it in terms of being creative. Whenever I do ideation sessions, one of the phrases that I use with my team is I say, let's put on our magic jackets. And while we have our magic jackets on, anything is possible.
I
So
love that.
don't worry about how we're actually going to do it or make it or how much it's going to cost. The idea is to get the juices flowing and to just be really creative. And again, always keeping consumer at the center of that and really understanding who your consumer is. And I think that's one of the leadership qualities that is really key in innovation is knowing who you're innovating for. And that
Yeah.
could be in terms of your workplace, and we want to be innovative in the way we are delivering a new program. It could be in an AI space, and we want to be innovative in this new way technology that we're leveraging or that we want to sell
Right.
to a different market. Or in my particular space, in the beverage industry, we want to create new products that people love, but that are really true to us as a brand and or add some sort of value to the target consumer.
Yeah. And I do a lot of work around trust and overcoming perfectionism. And I feel like to be innovative requires a lot of trust and psychological safety. And in fact, there are 10 questions or 10 kind of statements that Amy Edmondson, who coined the term psychological safety, she uses to kind of gauge how safe and high trust your team or organization is. And there's two questions out of the 10 that organizations I have found are struggling with the most. And the two questions are, I feel safe to take a risk on this team. And if I make a mistake, it's never held against me. And so I'd love to just hear your thoughts on that because I feel like trust and psychological safety is at the root of people being able to put their, magic jacket on.
I think that when you said those two things, I'm like, yes and yes. So starting with feeling safe to be able to make a mistake, it's really hard, especially I think we kind of live in a bit of a perfectionist
Yeah.
culture. You know me, Vitale. I'm a little bit of a recovering perfectionist
Yes.
myself, which is really interesting that I was so drawn into innovation because
Yeah.
in innovation, you have to be willing to make mistakes because if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. And what
Right.
I coach my team on is one, it's okay to make mistakes, but let's make them fast. Let's fail forward and let's fail fast. And the purpose of a mistake is to learn from that. And one of the phrases that I learned from you, Vitali, is, a mistake is a chance to reset with a new set of data points. And I love that phrasing, and phrasing it like that helps you learn for the next time. I think it's something, I don't know the exact statistic, but something like 90% of new innovative products fail, right? But there's something that companies learned
Right.
from that they build into the next thing. Sometimes things are ahead of their time. Sometimes they weren't the right fit. Sometimes they weren't messaged the right way. You never know until you get it out there. And consumers vote with their dollars. And sometimes you just got to take the leap and actually launch and
Yeah.
learn from there.
Well, and you have to be willing to be in that 90% to get to the 10%.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's talk about your recovering perfectionism because, my topics are perfectionism and trust and everything that that is related to, which is essentially everything. But I'd love to know like how perfectionism, like how it has shown up for you in the past and maybe how it shows up for you currently.
Sure. In the past, for me, sometimes it can be analysis paralysis, where I'm trying so hard to do the right thing that I end up doing nothing,
Right.
or I'm so delayed in turning something in or getting feedback that it misses the point of whatever the exercise was. And I can see that with some of my younger peers
Yeah.
that I work with, and I try to coach them on progress over perfection.
Right.
And I would rather have them share with me the work that they're doing so I can understand their thinking,
Right.
understand their thought process, and make sure that they're on the right path. Because something that would happen to me is I would be so worried about some small detail that either someone was too senior to have time to read and didn't care,
Yeah.
or I missed the big point of the exercise and I was going in the wrong direction and I spent way too much time on that
Right.
that I could have been spent going in the right direction that the organization was looking for. So it took some great coaching and some really good team members and peers and mentors to help me through that, but it's something that I continually am working on a daily basis. And one of the things I say to myself too is progress over perfection. Done is better than not done,
Right.
and understanding that failure is part of the journey and that it's okay. Everybody fails. Something that I tell myself too, because I think how perfectionism shows up for me, I have this image that everyone has their lives all put together and everything's shiny and sparkly, and that's not true. So whenever I have a big presentation or anything I'm nervous about, I always say they put their pants on one leg at a time too. Everyone's just a person. We're all
Yeah.
just people going through this little journey that we call life. They may have more experience than me or they
Right.
may not, but they're still just a person. And when I kind of peel that back, it makes it feel much more relatable and easy to get through whatever task I'm trying to get through.
Yeah. I also remind myself, one of the things if I get nerves, I'm like, you know what? I'm not that important.
I love that.
Like, and I mean that in like the kindest, like most lighthearted way. Not that we all walk around thinking that we're overly important, but for me, I just remind myself, I'm like, they're not going to remember this.
Yeah, in the
You
grand
know?
scheme of
Yeah.
things, it's not that big a
Right.
deal, right? Yeah.
Yes. Um, so I am not directly in innovation, but obviously experimenting and trying new things as a business owner is really important. And I really feel like innovation requires space, like space to think,
Hmm.
space to get outside your perspective. And I'm really, I think one of the things that organizations are struggling with the most is there's no space, right? We're in meeting after meeting after meeting.
Yes.
People don't even have time to process between the meetings. I mean, literally, they're in 8 meetings a day. They're working at night, working on Sundays, or just not even getting the work done because there's so many meetings. Um, and I'd love to know like how you prioritize space for yourself, or if that is a priority. And then we could get into what organizations are doing right now.
Yes. So this is a huge struggle. And I made a commitment to myself this year that, yeah, I need time to think, especially with my job. My job is to
Yeah.
be innovative. And part of that is having time to think and have a creative space. So one of
Yep.
the things I've done is create my office environment, having it conducive to
Yep.
learning. I face the window. I've done some decorations. I make sure that I have a clear workspace. I find when my workspace is cluttered that it makes my mind feel cluttered. So sometimes I take a break, clean up my desk, and reset. The other thing I do is at the beginning of the week, I set up a half hour at the beginning of the week to set my week.
Yeah.
And I block it off on my calendar. It's a recurring meeting invite in my calendar, so it's blocked off, so no one can take that space. My admin knows that that is holy precious time.
Yeah.
And I go through my week. What meetings do I have? What do I need to prep for? What do I not need to attend? So one of the
Right.
things I've challenged myself on is, are all of these meetings really necessary? Guess what, Vitali? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
So sometimes we have meetings to have meetings. So I really challenge when I get an invite saying, what is the purpose of this meeting? What's the outcome? What's the decision that needs to be made? Do I have all the materials I need to be prepared for that meeting? And if not, I politely decline and say, when you're ready, let me know and I'll make myself available. And that has been a game changer
Yes.
for me because sometimes I don't need to be invited to your thinking out loud session.
Right.
Sometimes I do, but a
Yeah.
lot of times I don't. And that has freed a lot of time on my schedule. Also, is there an opportunity for me to give one of my team members an opportunity to step
Yes.
into a space and be able to attend on behalf of our team? And that frees up my time. So those are some little things that I've been doing. Another thing that I've started doing this year is once a month, the last Friday of the month, I block off the entire afternoon. So starting around like 2 p.m., 2 to 5, and I say beginning of the month prep, end of the month review. I go through the whole month, what worked, what didn't, what did I say I was going to do that I can maybe do better, what worked, what do I need to change, what do I have coming up in the next month that I need to prep for. And one of the things I found was we talk a lot about work-life balance, and the older I get, I find that that is a lie that we have been told.
Yes.
I don't really like that phrasing
Yeah.
because this isn't severance. We don't split into two people with our innie and our
Right.
outie.
Yeah.
We're one person, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a worker, all in this one
Yeah.
body. And I used to try to really separate like my work list and my to-do list. And sometimes I just need to brain dump and get it all out. So I
Mhm.
need to go to the dentist, I need to buy new uniforms, I need to schedule this meeting, I need to work on this deck and getting it all out and doing that like in a big chunk. What do I have coming up this month in my life has really helped me just get it out of my brain. And then I find I can tick through things much quickly or delegate where I need to or
Yeah.
to get things off of my list. So I feel like getting them out of my head helps me get them off of my list. Because again, I can get into analysis paralysis, a little bit of procrastination. And I find for me, sometimes when things stay in my head is where I can procrastinate with things. So, for example, I need to get a new vacuum cleaner because life, right? And it's a bit in my mind. I need to get a new vacuum cleaner. I need to get it. And so today, my son was getting ready for school, and I was like, oh, I need to get a new vacuum cleaner. And instead of just procrastinating, I got out my phone because I was waiting for him to get ready because
Yeah.
he's a teenager and slow.
Yeah.
And I already had it saved in my Amazon cart. Why I didn't actually click add,
Yeah.
check out, I don't know. So I finally did.
Analysis
It's like,
paralysis. It's like, is there a better deal? Is there a better vacuum? Do I need to?
yeah, exactly. And I was just like, okay, it's done. So trying to do things when I can, when they make sense, not delaying, trying to not procrastinate. That's how perfectionism shows up a lot for me is in procrastination as well. The other last thing that I'll share that has been really great. So I am fortunate enough in a place in my career where I have an assistant that helps manage my schedule. I have a great relationship with her. She has changed my life. And one of the things I said to her where I really need support and help is I need time to think. And so she makes sure that every week I have an hour each day protected time on my calendar that I call strategic thinking.
That's
And
awesome.
I can use that time to literally just go for a walk, sit and think. Sometimes I use that time just to get through my to-do list because that helps me clear out my mind too. I try to get outside a lot during that time, just to, as the kids say, touch grass, get a little
Yeah.
vitamin D on my face, get
Yeah.
some fresh air, move my body a little bit. I have a walking pad, so I'll walk on my walking pad, just something to kind of get the juices flowing.
Yeah.
And so that has been a huge, huge help for me.
I love that. I've been doing a lot of workshops on AI, but the human side of AI and how much it has sped up our lives, you know? And so one of the concepts that I throw out there in the training is that I believe the ROI of space is actually higher than the ROI of productivity.
Hmm. I
And,
agree.
and everyone is like, tell me more about this, or I don't know. We have like this constructive kind of conversation around it because, the human side of us that makes us so unique are the ability to make decisions, our judgment, our critical thinking, our ability to be creative and innovative, and those things require space. And so it's like, how do we start maximizing that? And how, as organizations, do we start like mandating that? And I think that the organizations that are going to flourish in the future are the ones that have policies around space, right? Like that you're required to have downtime office hours every month and you have to use them,
Yes.
right? You have 8 hours a month. You have to use them. Like technology cuts off. I have no idea. But you're required to use them every single month. And it's
Yeah.
for everyone, not just your senior leaders, because
Yes.
everyone needs them. And so I've just been brainstorming and thinking about ideas for organizations to create more space because I just think it is so, so important.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things we do at Milo's that I love, and we try really, really hard to respect it. Obviously, things come up. We do every other week, we do no meeting Wednesday. And
Love
no
that.
meeting Wednesday truly means no meeting Wednesday. And if our boss finds out that you have a meeting on no meeting Wednesday, like you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And so it's meant to have kind of an
Right.
8 hour time to think. It doesn't mean that you can't meet with people, but the point is not to have recurring team meetings or
Yes.
things like that on Wednesdays. It's meant to have a space where you can get through your task list, think about things that you want to think about. We always talk about, strategy and building new things and the vision of where we want to go. Creating those things takes time
Yeah.
and
Right.
space and time to play around with the ideas and get really creative. And I totally agree. If you don't have the space to do that and the safety to feel that you can take the space to
Right.
do that, I think it can make a big difference in your organizations. And I agree, the organizations that protect that space and make room and create that space, I think will prosper in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a client of mine who's experimenting with no meeting Fridays, and it's every single Friday. And it's interesting because you would think that automatically everyone would love it, right? It's no meeting Friday, but some
Yeah.
people, they've really,
It's a
struggled.
transition. It's different from what we know, what we're
Right. And
used
it's
to.
like, well, how do I get everything done in 4 days? And for me, it's like, if you can't get everything done or those meetings in 4 days, then we need to look at our meetings.
Agreed.
Like
How
we need to have
efficient
a,
are
we need to
they?
have a mirror moment with ourselves and our team and our organization.
Yes, exactly.
Um, so I'm trying to think what else. One of the things too, sorry, I'm like kind of going with my intuition, in terms of like space and innovation. There's this quote, and I write about it in my newsletter this month, but it's amidst the chaos, there is opportunity.
Hmm.
And I really love that. And there's all types of chaos, right? Like there's high growth chaos. There's chaos that comes with reorgs and reduction in force and AI and acquisitions, mergers, all of it, right? There's good chaos and then maybe chaos we view as not good. But regardless, I feel like there is opportunity, to pivot, to see things differently, for something to come out of it. And I feel like it's been a really powerful thought for me. Because when we turn our perfectionism down and stop trying to push against chaos or push against change and really just say like, what is this trying to teach me? Uh,
Yes.
it can be really powerful. And in fact, there was another quote, and then I'll shut up, that said, instead of thinking it as an interruption, think of it as an invitation.
Ooh. I love that.
I know, right?
I
But
do a
yeah,
lot of affirmations, and one of the ones that I said this morning is a no or a rejection isn't really a no, it's just a redirection. So it's another
right.
way of framing that chaos, disruption is a way of guiding you to where you want to be. I had a boss one time, and she would always tell me one of her quotes was never waste a crisis. So when
Yeah,
something's going wrong in the organization, she was like, use that to your advantage, use that to get what you need. Something went wrong. Okay, does that mean we need more resources? Do we need to be
right.
structured differently? Do we need different governance around the project, whatever that is. She's like, use that as an opportunity. And I've always taken that with me. It's proven to be quite helpful throughout the years.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, just letting it be what it is, right? Like my business was a little slower at the beginning of this year, but that also let me not travel as much, which allowed me to be more present. It
Mhm.
also allowed me, like with my family and my boys, it allowed me to have routine, which when I'm traveling a lot, I don't have. Um, and so just, a little more consistency, a calmer nervous system. And so I'm super grateful for those 2 months and also my ability to let them be like that because I could have chosen to just continue to kind of push the river.
Yeah, agree. And it's like, what does that get you? That wears you out even more. I found for me, I was really exhausting myself and not getting that much further.
Right.
And so for me, when I take a step back, take a break. What do I need to learn from this chaos, this moment, this redirection, this opportunity that it gets you to where you want to go a lot faster?
Yeah. Um, can you tell us about one of your failures? Because, failures are experiments.
Yeah.
Um, what didn't go planned, how you handled it, how you,
Ugh.
picked yourself back up.
Yeah. I'm like, how much time do you
I
have?
know. You can tell
I've
us a
got
few.
plenty. I think one that I'll share that I think is really important, and I think a lot of people can relate to is what was it? A few years ago, my role was eliminated. I was impacted from a position, and that had never happened to me before. And I was like, gasp, could it be me? I still remember being in the room and they're talking about the organization changes, and I was like, and I had a counterpart, right? So there's two people, sort of one role. And I remember thinking like, gosh, what's that other person gonna do? Like it was not clicking. I was like, it could never be me, right? And what's interesting is this was a role that I was very unhappy in, not a great work environment. I was working to exit that organization anyways, and the universe said,
Right.
I got you, girl. We're gonna do it a little bit
Yeah.
later. But that really rocked me. Now, I've been in major corporations my entire career. I've been through a numerous amount of reorgs. So it wasn't unheard of, but I had never personally experienced. And I think just the way businesses run today, it's something that likely will happen to almost all of us. It was a reorg. It wasn't anything personal. It wasn't about me or my performance, but I am a perfectionist
Yeah.
and very much took it that way. And it was so hard and heartbreaking. Now, mind you, I didn't even like that job. I didn't even want to work there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was so hurt that this happened to me. And I remember calling my mom and, telling
Yeah.
her, and I was like so upset. And my mom said to me, when was the last time you had a break? I was like, well, I went on vacation, 'cause she's like, no, 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 no. When was the last time you had a break? And I really paused and I thought about it. And I said, oh, 2000. Okay, so like over 20 years ago,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So she's like, okay, so maybe you can just take a little break.
Right.
And the thought had literally never occurred to
Right.
me to take a break. And I'll tell you, Vitaly, it is exactly what I needed. And it was a way to reset and refresh. I went into my job search so much more clear
Yeah.
on what I wanted and what I didn't want. Um, I am very big on that you can create the life that you want. I believe in manifestation and writing things down and the power of the word. And I started writing down, this is what I want, this is what my next role looks like, and this is what I don't want, and getting really, really
Right.
specific because my previous role on paper, it was great. And what I learned was I wasn't specific enough about other things that were very important to
Right.
me. I wasn't specific enough about culture and values and how those are executed. And so for my next roles after that, I took the time to really think through in totality what my next position should look like for me to be able to show up authentically and as a whole and complete person to be the best version of myself and the best worker. And I just learned so much about myself and work, and it was a blessing in disguise that that first week was rough. There were some tears, there was a lot of
Yeah.
hurt. Um, and it helped me reconnect with people. I started reaching out with people and reaching out to my network. And it's not something that I necessarily would have done had I just moved on to the next role. So in hindsight, I'm really grateful that it happened
Yeah.
and I learned so much about myself through it, but it was tough. But we all
Yeah.
we all get through it, right?
Yeah. How did you start giving yourself permission to be on that break? Because I think that's one of the things that can be so hard. Just our natural inclination to be a human doing instead of a human
Yes.
being, and just, that addiction to productivity and being on all the time. And so I think even it takes a little while to kind of get into being in a,
Yes, it was really hard. Now, one of the things I did keep consistent, I get up really early and go to the gym. So I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I'm still gonna get up
right.
early, go to the gym, get my son to
Yeah.
school. But then I'm like, what am I gonna do all day?
Yeah.
Like what am I gonna do all day? And so I had a friend, and a piece of advice she gave me that was so helpful. She was like, well, what's something you've always wanted to do? And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I never thought about what I actually wanted to
Right.
do. And so I started making a list of things I wanted to do that I never had time for. And I started doing them. I cleaned out my Tupperware drawer and I went to Sephora and I learned how to do a smoky eye because I had always wanted to do that. And so
I still need to do that.
yeah, it was great. You go and it's like 50
Yeah.
bucks or whatever, and they teach you how to do it and you can buy all the stuff. And then I learned how to do a smoky eye. I love to read, so I would go to the library in my local bookstore and read all of these books that I wanted to read. And I just kind of took some time back for myself. And I realized how important that was and how much I had lost in doing so much, how much I had lost of myself.
Mhm.
And that is and as I started feeling better by doing those things, that's how I continue to give myself grace and give myself permission to actually rest and
Right.
relax. I had never met her before. She's new.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
great.
and I think even in like micro moments, like you and I were talking before we hit record that, well, yesterday was Mother's Day, and my husband took both kids out of the house. So from 1 to 5, I had the house to myself. And I was like, okay. He was like, please really rest. Like, do not
Yes.
work, really rest. And so I was like, okay. And so there's a memoir that I'm reading, and so I've read the book, and Law and Order SVU is on in the background. I've already seen all the episodes, so no big deal. And I was like, okay. And I read for like 90 minutes, and I was like, well, I'll just read for like 30 more minutes, and then I'll get work done. And then I was like, no, like I'm gonna read for the entire 4 hours.
Hmm.
And I did. And it was like,
What
it
a
was,
day. That
I
sounds
know,
perfect.
it was so nice. The house was quiet, it was so quiet. And, but it's like I had to continue to like give myself permission. I think even in moments like that, like these micro moments throughout our week or our life, giving ourselves permission to rest is really important.
Yes, it's very hard because I know for me you're a mom, you're a worker, there's always something to do. You're like, oh, let me just run the dishwasher, throw in a load of laundry, wipe down the counters, do something. And
Yeah.
I have really been working on prioritizing true rest, even in micro moments, even if it's for 20 minutes, and just sitting and playing a game, reading a book, doing something to just soothe my nervous system, calm my mind, give my body a chance to just reset before getting into the next thing. It'll all still be there.
I love that. Um, So we talked about trust on the team. I just have a few more questions. Trust on the team, um, and how that leads to innovation. What do you think are some of the like non-negotiables for building and maintaining trust on your team?
I think for me, the most important thing is honesty
Okay.
and being authentic and creating an environment where people can show up as their full selves. I've been on high trust teams and low trust teams, and I know what has worked for me. So, as a leader, I try to create an environment where my team can show up as their authentic selves. As I've gotten more senior in my career and just older and, kind of grown into myself, one of the things I've committed to myself is to show up authentically because who has the energy to not,
I know.
I don't have the energy for that anymore. I'm like, and I'm great. Why wouldn't I show up as my full self? And
Right.
I want to create a space where my team feels that they can do that, however that looks for them. And having that level of honesty is really key to be able to do that. And one of the things, there's a Brene Brown quote from one of her books that I've read that she says, clear is kind. And I really try very hard, especially if there's tough feedback, that nothing's personal. This is all for what we need to do to deliver the job that we're hired for, right?
Right.
And to do our best job for the business. And if I'm not honest and clear with you, that's not helpful for you either. I've learned that a lot as a parent. I remember I realized when my son was very young that, when they're little and you kind of want to like let them win. And
Yeah.
I said to myself, well, like, but what is that teaching him? That's not really teaching him anything. You have
Right.
to learn how to lose because
Right.
that is a life skill because we're going to lose a lot in
Yeah.
life. And I think it's the same thing in a work environment or on a team environment is that we have to be honest with each other with what's working and what's not working because we can't improve if we don't know what's working. And I feel like through that, I've been able to be part of really high trust teams and build a trust team
Mhm.
with my team now. And you can see the growth and how much faster we can move
Right.
when we have that trust with each other.
Yeah, you can. You can move so much faster. I mean, speed increases and then cost decreases actually in a high trust environment. Um, well, and I think I had a thought and I lost it. Authenticity. Um, in the age of AI, I think authenticity obviously is going to grow increasingly important, but also one of the things that I've been working on is like this term AI average, that we're all, if we don't use AI appropriately or intentionally, then we're all going to sound the same. We're all
Mm.
going to use the same words, right? Like it's going to, like I'll be typing an email and like AI is trying to correct certain phrases. And I'm like, I've never used that word in my
Yeah,
life.
you're like, that's
You
just not
need to
me.
be,
Yeah.
it's like, you need to be more succinct. And I was like, I'm 43. Like, I'm good. I've gotten this far. Like, I am who I am. Like, I've never used that word. I'm not, and so it's just so interesting where I'm like, nope, like turn off the AI corrections. I'm
Yes.
good. But we can all start kind of sounding like it. So I think it's going to be interesting too, how we get really intentional with how we use it and the use cases and the governance around it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's space for it, right? But ultimately no one can replace us. Like I I say to myself in the mirror, I'm like, I'm so special, right? Like
Yeah,
what makes me me is me,
yeah,
and a computer could never replace
that's
me.
true.
And that's where the magic comes from. I think AI is great as a tool
Mhm.
to help us execute certain things faster, but being that authenticity, I think you can't replace that with AI. And I think companies that learn that right balance of how to use AI as a tool for tactical execution
Yeah.
things versus trying to replace a person for really creative things, I think that will be the difference.
Yeah. Um, there was a really good kind of question that I asked too, that it's like, okay, let's imagine it's like 3 years from now, and AI has increased your capacity by 15%. So like reduced your need for headcount, but you had to actually keep your headcount. So it's reduced your capacity or increased your capacity, but you have to keep your headcount. I'm like, it's like, what would be possible for you?
Right.
right? If everyone else had more capacity, you had to keep your head count. Like, would you start that new service, launch that new product? Like what would be possible for the
Yeah, and I
organization?
think it goes back to you saying like that can we use AI to create the space that we need
Right.
to create
Hmm.
and innovate and think differently. So, yeah, can we launch another product, expand a service, distribute further, find a creative solution to something else that we never had time
Right.
to work on before? I think that's where the magic of AI can really live.
Me too. Okay, final question. Um, what is like one of the best pieces of leadership advice you've ever gotten?
Ooh, that's a good one. I have gotten lots of little nuggets of advice, right, throughout my career. I think some of the best leadership advice I have received is it kind of goes back to authenticity and finding a way to always be myself as I progress throughout my career. Because again, why the company hired me is because of me. So my style may be different from Vitale's style, and
Yeah,
that's okay. I don't need to exactly mimic you. I can take things from you and learn from you, but I always have to make things my own. And people can tell when you're being authentic or not. They may not always be able to name it. Um, and the leaders that I have admired the most and I've learned the most from, and that I think have been part of the most successful organizations, have always been really true and authentic to themselves. And I worked for a leader and he was much more quiet and sort of soft spoken. And I worked at a very like extroverted organization. And he said he had to find a way to still be his more quieter, reserved self in a very extroverted organization. But that ended up being his superpower. And had he tried to change, he wouldn't have
right.
been as effective because he wouldn't have really truly have been himself.
Yeah.
And so that's really hard to do. It sounds so simple, like just be
Mhm.
yourself, like when your mom tells you on your first day of school, just be
Yeah.
yourself, you'll make
Yeah.
friends. But the older I get, the more I realize the value in that. And it gives me such ease when I'm just being
Yeah.
myself and showing up authentically. It helps build the trust um, with teammates and other colleagues. And so I think at the end of the day, that has been the most powerful piece that has led me on my leadership journey.
I love that. Thank you so much, Pamela. I appreciate you. I'm
You.
excited for everyone to listen to this interview. Just thank you for your time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.